Hello. Let's start a new reading vlog together. Me right now is a couple of days after finishing The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, which was 1,000 pages. So, mood reading this week as a result, because I can't be having any of that for right now. I can't let fate decide what I'm reading. I need to decide what I'm reading. But actually currently the library is deciding what I'm reading because this book was due back a week ago, so I should probably read it. It's the 2 short stories from the Selection series. I read the first one yesterday, which is The Prince. I've only read Selection, like the first book in the series, but The Prince gave me no new information. Didn't tell me anything new about Maxon, didn't tell me anything new about the situation. I kind of just learned his dad is a bigger dick than we already knew, and that's it. So that was kind of 80 pages of nothing. The next one is The Guard, which is, what's his name, Avery Aspen. And we know less about him from the Selection, so I'm guessing I'll learn more from that, but I didn't like him in the Selection. That is where we're starting with this mood reading, but my TBR cart is looking juicy and I want to read everything on there. I have a book that I have to buddy read with my sister, but I don't really feel like doing it because I think it's going to be a bit of a downer. And I've read a lot of heavy books lately and just like books that make me think too much, where I need the fast-paced, lighthearted books. So I have no idea what I'm going to read next. I am in a fantasy mood, I can tell you that. I can't read this yet. That just gave me a spoiler for the next book. I thought that because they were in the same book, it would be the same time, but I think this takes place after. What's the second one? The Elite. So scrap that. Let's bring that back to the library today and go pick a different book. Let's see what I had written in my TBR for the month. I didn't use prompts this month. I just picked what I wanted to read. So I have The Guard, which now I'm not going to read. The Elite. Please Tell Me. The Girl in the Painting. I think those 2 are on my Kindle and I don't feel like reading from my Kindle right now. I feel like a physical book. The Unwinding of the Miracle, which is my book with my sister, and Treasure Island, which is the classic, which I don't want to read. Okay, so I'm not going to read any of those. Let's choose from the cart. I don't think I want romance. I think I need to go fantasy, which is one of these. Maybe I start Legends and Lattes. Oh, it's cozy though, isn't it? And I kind of want something fast-paced. The problem is I'm looking at most of these, and if I start Once Upon a Broken Heart, I have to get the next book if I like it. If I start Phantasma, I have the second book, so that's a good option. One Dark Window, I'd have to get the next one. Bone Season, I'd have to keep going. Belladonna, I think, is a series. There's too many series. Maybe I'll go Phantasma. Because I have the second book, this might be the best option. Let's read this. I am just over halfway. I'm reading this pretty quickly. At night 6, just over 300 pages in. I immediately right off the bat can see why people compare this to Caraval. Caraval? I still hate the name of that book, Caraval. This is definitely the adult version of that, and it's a lot more fun, and I prefer the writing. When I heard the comparison, I was a little bit nervous, because I think I said that before. I didn't love Caraval, but I read the whole series, but it was like a 3-star series for me. And this is definitely sitting higher than that. I am really enjoying it. I love the characters. I love the horror aspect. It still has like the fantastical, magical aspect that other fantasy books like Caraval have, but the horror part that is added to this is maybe could be a little bit more. I was gonna say it's just the right amount, but maybe it could be a little bit more. So it's the same as Caraval in the fact that there are, like I just showed you, night 2, you know, there's all these different nights and there is a trial every evening and they sleep during the day. You don't know what's true and what's a lie. But other than that, that's kind of where the likeness ends, honestly, except for the sisters. So we are following Ophelia, and her sister Genevieve went into Phantasma, this house, I guess, this test you have to sign up to do, and you probably are signing up for death. There is some escape, but most people die or win. One person wins. Ophelia's sister is in there. She's pretty sure. So she found a note that her sister Genevieve left her, and she was like, oh my goodness, I have to follow her into Phantasma. So in that sense, similar as well to Caraval. But after that, that is where the similarities end. Ophelia has magic that she, oh my goodness, there's a construction worker literally right outside my house. We've relocated. We're following Ophelia. Right, she has magic that is passed down by the generations. I forget how many years. She says centuries. I think like 20 generations or something. I could be making that up. And her mom dies in the prologue of the book. So Ophelia takes on her magic as the oldest daughter. And it's not a fun thing to do. She is considered a necromancer, so she can speak to the dead and she can see the apparitions. And it's actually really helpful in the beginning of the book. There is a hierarchy of all the paranormal beings, and it's helpful that it's there, even though actually when each different one is introduced, there is a little bit of explanation along with it. The world building in this is really well done. And they live in New Orleans, which is cool because I feel like that makes sense for this kind of story to take place. And it's, I want to say, beginning of 1900s. So Ophelia goes into this house and she is placed in a group that her sister is not placed in. So she still actually doesn't know if she's right about her being there. I have some guesses about what's going to happen, obviously, but I'm thinking I might be wrong about everything. I have a lot of guesses. I'm curious if they're all going to be right and if it's going to be like a pretty straightforward book in the end, or if I'm going to be surprised by anything. Right now, Ophelia and a character named Blackwell are breaking my heart. She is just at this point starting to annoy me. I wish I checked in earlier when I was liking her more, because I just finished a part and I'm thinking, oh, like, stop the back and forth, just make up your mind kind of a situation. I'm still having fun with it and I still like her as a main character. I think that she's a very relatable main character. It is interesting when a fantasy book takes very real world things and adds them in, and I love that. The realism mixed with the surrealism is kind of perfect in this. Pacing is also really good because she just finished the 4th trial out of 7 initial trials, and then there's 2 more. It's like the 9 circles of hell kind of thing, and there are these demons putting out these trials, and each one is a different temptation, like a different deadly sin kind of thing. So she has done a few of them. It is described pretty well. So they go into these trials, and I have this problem with every book that has trials. I cannot for the life of me accurately picture in my head what they're describing. So with some of them it is a bit difficult for me to picture, and I'm thinking specifically about when I read The Hunger Games and then watched the movies for some of the things, and I was like, this is not at all what I pictured. I'm curious actually what's going through the author's head as I'm reading it. I'm like overthinking, is she picturing this the same way that I am? But why does it matter? Because it's made up anyway, and I get the gist of it. Like, I understand why people are dying and the choices that they have to make. So I'm not sure why I stake so much importance on exactly how it's meant to look when it's made up anyway, you know? But I'm enjoying this. It is Friday night now, so I think I can easily finish this tonight. I hope so. I finished Phantasma. I read it until like 10:30 p.m. that night, and so I was laying in bed beside me and I was like freaking out at the end. It is so good. And I had a guess, a little mini guess, and it like blew it out of the water. It was a little part of the ending, but the ending was so much bigger than what I had expected it to be. Sorry, little rearrange. The world that was built for Phantasma is kind of unmatched. I haven't read like fantasy horror together a whole lot. There are 1 or 2 books that I can think of in my head. I think I said it before, but just like the hierarchy that she built of like devils and the prince of devils and the demons and the phantoms and the apparitions is very well done and understandable, and I really, really, really liked it. And actually after my last update, the trials that they had after that, I way preferred. I liked them a lot better and they were described better, and I think it's because there were less people competing and they were kind of competing together, whereas the earlier trials, it was kind of, they were separate from each other, and Ophelia was just trying to complete them on her own, and then as you got farther along, they kind of tried to complete them as a group and had to condemn other people in the group, and that is just a little bit more exciting. As for the romance in this book, I think that Blackwell is one of my favorite male main characters in a fantasy that I've read in a while. He's not like the dark, brooding. In saying that, I do love those characters. I really do. But he is separate from a lot of fantasy male main characters that you read about lately. He has the initial yearning, and the things that he says to Ophelia are swoony. I think maybe it's just that he was vulnerable a lot earlier on than I'm used to in one of these books. In saying that, the spice got a little out of control. I don't say that too often. I'm like, here for it, whatever. It started off really well, and then by like the 4th and the 5th and the 6th spice scene, I was like, okay, now you're just taking away from the plot. Like, I don't understand why this is here. There's something really earth-shattering and humongous happening, and you're just out here having sex. Honestly, it was not badly written. It just, like I said, took away from the actual story itself. I am really intrigued to see what the second book is about because I have no idea, and this read as a standalone. I am so surprised that there's a series because this could just be a standalone on its own, and that would be a good thing. Like, it would be a really well-written standalone. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. I'm not going to start it yet. My final rating on this is 4 stars, by the way. It would have been higher if the spice was not taking away from the story. I can't get past that, which is so annoying because usually I really don't care. But at the end of the book, I was like, crap, is this going down to a 3.5? And then the end of the book happened and I was like, nope. Amazing. Can we fight some more? You know what? Mom will leave. I can't believe we've relocated for the second time in this video. Also, my neighbor is moving out today and I hear some removing of things from the wall, so sorry if you hear it. What was I saying? This book is just shy of 500 pages and I will say it never felt too long. I was never bored. I didn't think anything was out of place or shouldn't be there. It actually moved pretty quickly through the days. Sometimes I'm surprised that there wasn't more in between pages between the nights and the trials. I hate when the ending is too short and I hate when the ending is too long. And I think that the ending was the perfect length for us to understand everything, get situated with what's happening, and yeah, you can come in. Okay. Hi. You done fighting now that Mom left? I was like, you know what, maybe I need a break from fantasy. So I picked up my Kindle. I am going to try to read everything on my Kindle pretty quickly, I think. I would like to make the switch to a Kobo next year. I can get library books on my Kobo. In Canada, you can't get library books on your Kindle. I know people have like changed their IP address and got like a different library card. I'm not going to go through all of that. Maybe wait for a deal and buy one then. But I did pick up my Kindle and I started The Girl on the Painting by T. Cooper. And this is a historical fiction that takes place in early 1900s Australia. And I haven't read too many books that take place in Australia. Historical fiction, I don't think any. I'm like 15% of the way through. The start is interesting, but again, it is a dual timeline. I'm so sick of picking up books that are a dual timeline without realizing it. Like, just give me the first half of the story and then give me the second half of the story so I understand the characters instead of having to go, like, I famously have a hate on for a dual timeline unless it's perfectly done, and it's hard to be perfectly done, and this is not one of them. It goes back and forth every chapter between Jane in like, oh, I think it's like 1916 at this point, might be a little bit earlier, and the Quinns, who are brother and sister from Ireland who moved to Australia in like the 1860s, so that's the time we're going back to. And their timeline is boring and Jane's is getting started, I think. But I like don't understand the point of the book yet. So Jane is really good at math. She was in an orphanage and she did an aptitude test and got 100%. So the Quinns were like, okay, we'll take her on as our prodigy because Elizabeth Quinn, the sister, is also very good at math and she's an accountant in the early 1900s, which is unheard of, but for their own company. But she's like, we'll send you to university and we'll hire you on to work for us after you're done. So that's the point now. I'm scared it's going to stay a little bit boring. I might change to listen to the audiobook while I'm doing other things. I'm not sure. That's the vibe I'm getting right now. I'm about a quarter of the way through The Girl on the Painting and I am restless and thinking of all the things that I could be doing instead. So I'm switching to the audiobook while I empty the dishwasher and, you know, dilly-dally around the house. So Elizabeth just had a panic attack and we're getting a little bit more about her history. So far the past has just been Michael, her brother, and now we're getting a little bit more of her history because she stayed with someone else when they got to Sydney and he kind of tried to start creating a home and start controlling this business, and she was left with a family and not treated very well. And Jane is still just doing her thing, being smart. If the audiobook doesn't improve by the time I'm done doing some chores, I will probably DNF. We still don't know who the girl in the painting is. That's interesting. Don't know if it's Jane or Elizabeth or someone else completely. Elizabeth just had a bit of a panic attack and she doesn't remember why. So maybe she saw herself in a painting. Anyway, let's do some chores and listen. I have about an hour left in The Girl in the Painting audiobook. After my last update, I was like, why am I still listening to this? It's getting boring. About half an hour later, I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I almost stopped listening to this. It's getting really good. It's kind of turned into a little bit of a mystery. It's definitely these minds coming together, Jane with her facts and Elizabeth and Michael with their feelings and trying to solve a mystery with some third-party characters that have come in. It's kind of fun, and I just realized something crazy, so I thought I had to film before I find out if I'm right or not, but I think I'm right about something absolutely wild. I still feel like there's a few plot holes and things that don't necessarily make sense with the rest of the story, but maybe these things can be answered with polite society and people doing what they were raised to do and just act as though they're polite. I will say that the complexity of characters is really good. It's like this indecisiveness of whether or not I like these characters, specific ones, that keeps me a little bit hooked. And the back and forth dual timeline only lasts till about halfway through the book, and now it's all present day. So maybe that's also why my feelings have changed. I will leave you with that, and I'm gonna bake some zucchini bread. Actually, I want to say thanks. I hit 100 subscribers today, which doesn't sound like a big deal because it's not a very big number to some people, but it's very exciting. This has been a big boost in my month. It's double my goal. My goal every month has been to get 10 subscribers, and I have gained 20 this month, so it's very exciting. Anyway, thank you. I finished The Girl in the Painting. The ending just kind of wrapped up in a neat little bow without any more information. The ending went way too fast. I am just still so undecided on this book because I kept going back and forth from liking it to not liking it, and I think the writing for me is the problem. I think I enjoyed the plot and I enjoyed the audiobook narrator. The story that she chose to tell was great. The writing itself was not my favorite and a little bit difficult to get into. I do like that it was a historical fiction that taught me something about Australian history and Irish history because the main characters came from Ireland in the 1800s, but was also a mystery. I think that's so fun. In saying that, I don't think I'm going to remember this book. I think it was just mediocre. It just did not leave a lasting impression, and I'm glad that it was a Prime First Reads and that I read it for free. I'm undecided. I think it's really a 2.5, isn't it? This is a 2.5 star book to me. Right there in the middle. Don't necessarily regret reading it. Glad I listened to the audiobook. But then I picked up We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, and I made it about 100 pages. Where am I? Chapter 23, 95 pages, which says a lot about the book, that it's 23 chapters in 100 pages. These are short chapters. It keeps bouncing from perspective to perspective. I've never read a Richard Osman book, but I know who Richard Osman is because I love British panel television, and he was on Taskmaster, and this reads in his voice. He has a very specific voice.
Strong of jaw and fine of feature, the King of Chesham, my new friend Peter.
When he's speaking, and he's a presenter for a reason, and it comes through in this in the best way possible. I think the pacing of this book is wonderful. Like every new chapter I was like, oh, who's the next one going to be about? And I just kept reading until my eyes were closing in bed. So that is a great testament to a book, especially a mystery, because mysteries are not my favorite genre. I'm trying to get into it because I enjoy always the mystery itself, but the books that I've read just don't hold my interest the way that I feel like they could, and this one does. So I think I finally found a mystery author who keeps me hooked. You are primarily following two main characters. We're following Amy and Steve, and they are a daughter-in-law, father-in-law duo, which is so exciting. I'm wondering where her husband Adam comes in. They kind of both mention him, but neither of them seem to have a really close relationship with him. And Steve keeps saying like, yeah, I just wonder when Amy's gonna call. I love Amy. I just can't wait to talk to Amy. She's my daughter. And I love that. So far, they're not in the same location, so they're just doing phone calls and thinking about each other and talking about each other to the people that they're with. So Steve is a retired detective and Amy is a current security guard, but like high profile security guard. So she is currently guarding the #1 author in the world, or like someone super popular. And Steve is in this little England town where his wife convinced him to move when he retired. He is hanging out with his friends, but also reading up on the news and being interested in Amy's work. And you can tell that like we were getting to the point where they're going to start working together on one of her current cases because she's kind of on the run right now. And then other than that, I've gotten probably like 6 other perspectives just throughout to kind of help us piece it together, but not in an obvious way at all, because so far everyone we've gotten is just kind of told what to do and is doing it. So we still don't know who the head honcho is or who their #1 co-conspirator is because they use code names. And there's this whole thing about every one of this guy's chapters starts with, from the desk of Francois Loubet, ChatGPT, rewrite in the style of a friendly English gentleman. And that is how he's getting away with it, he says. He's like, ChatGPT saved my life. Like, I don't have this common signature in my writing that everyone else has because it just rewrites it for me. And then it never sounds like me and no one will catch me. And he is a money launderer. So that's where I'm at so far. I'm really enjoying the pace of this. Here's the thing. I don't love carrying books over from month to month just because of the way that I do my reading journal. And it is July 31st today. So tomorrow is August. So I have nearly 300 pages to read today so that I can finish this. Here's the other thing. My sister is visiting from the East Coast, and today's the only day that I can see her. So I will be at my parents' house for a few hours today. And I have a job. I'm gonna do my best to read and get all my work done and visit with my sister for enough time today. I will leave it at that. I will keep you posted on how that goes. Okay, so I didn't quite finish it yesterday. I got so tired and I fell asleep at like, around 10 my eyes started closing, and I think I closed it at 10:15. If I can read this in the next hour before I have to start work, I'm gonna say I finished it. Chapter 76, page 292. I have about 70, 80 pages left. I'm gonna make myself a coffee and I'm going to race the clock because we are leaving for work today. So if I don't finish it, keep you posted. was just about to film my intro for my next reading vlog and realized I forgot to outro this one. So I finished We Solve Murders the day that I filmed last, the morning. So I succeeded in my endeavors and I finished before I had to go to work. It's been a few days and I've been thinking about this book like every day. So that tells you how good it is. One, because I'm not a huge mystery fan. I like them just for like a little change up of genres here and there, but otherwise I don't seek them out as a rule. I want to read everything else that Richard Osman has written. I had so much fun reading this book. I think the pacing was better. I think that a lot of like lighthearted mysteries that I've read really try to hone in on like the banter and the fun aspect, which was definitely in this, but it still felt higher stakes than other ones maybe. I felt more connected to the characters. I really enjoyed our characters. So there were just a few reasons that I liked it better than other mystery books that I have read recently. And the pacing definitely stayed consistent throughout. I really, really liked the pacing of this book and it felt like it spent the right amount of time at each scene. Maybe a little bit more time could have been spent at a couple of places, but I really didn't want to put this book down and I was so excited to keep reading it. And honestly, I'm still kind of sad it's over a few days later. I absolutely loved this book and I rated it 5 stars and I did not see that coming. I think our characters are so much fun. I love Steve. I think he's a wonderful character, the father-in-law. The end of this is written in such a way that you know that there will be more books and it will be a series and I love that. I can't wait to see more of Steve and Amy together. And I really thought that we would get more from Adam, Amy's husband and Steve's son, and we really didn't get much from him at all. And so I hope that he's kind of in the next ones because their relationship is very interesting. All 3 of them actually. Their relational dynamic is super interesting and I feel like there could be like a general fiction family drama written about these 3 people, which is kind of fun that that's just also on the side of this book. Outside characters were brought in sometimes and when you met people it was really like, will they be another main character or is this just going to be a side character or are we going to see them again? And that just kind of stayed throughout. That cycled every single time I met someone new and I never really knew what the answer was going to be to that question, and so I think that that was really fun and I could totally see this being like a mystery comedy movie one day. That was 5 stars and that wrapped up this week of mood reading and I had a lot of fun. This is definitely a highlight. Highly recommend if you are not super into mystery but would like to start getting into it, if you like the British banter, which I definitely do. That concludes this mood reading video and I hope that you guys had as much fun as I did. I will see you next week for another reading vlog. Bye.